Working the night shift at the Evergreen Hotel was supposed to be easy. Just check a few guests in, handle the occasional complaint, and mostly just sit behind the desk and read a book. But from the moment I started, something felt off. The first night, around 2 a.m., the lobby phone rang. I answered with the usual greeting, "Evergreen Hotel, how may I assist you?" But there was only silence. I repeated myself and still nothing. Just when I was about to hang up, I heard it. This low, guttural whisper, like someone was speaking from the bottom of a well. "Room 213. Then the line went dead. I checked the guest list. Room 213 was unoccupied. I chalked it up to a prank and tried to forget about it. But as the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The next night, the phone rang again. Same time, same voice. "Room 213. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed the master key and headed to the second floor. The hallway was dimly lit, and as I approached room 213, the air grew colder. My hand trembled as I inserted the key and turned the knob. The room was dark, but the faint outline of a figure could be seen standing by the window. My breath caught in my throat. I flipped the light switch, but the room remained pitch black. Panic set in and I fumbled for my flashlight. When the beam of light finally cut through the darkness, the figure was gone. The room was completely empty. Just as I was about to leave, the bathroom door creaked open. I swung the flashlight toward it, and for a brief moment, I saw it. A face, pale and distorted, staring back at me from the mirror. I ran out of there so fast, I almost tripped over my own feet. Back at the front desk, I tried to compose myself, telling myself it was just a trick of the light or my imagination. But I couldn't shake the image of that face. The third night, I was determined to stay at the desk no matter what. But at 2 a.m., the phone rang again. My heart pounded as I picked it up. This time, the voice was clearer, more insistent. "Room 213. Please, help me. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I grabbed the key again and made my way up to the second floor. The hallway was colder than before, and the door to room 213 was ajar. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of decay. My flashlight flickered as I scanned the room. There, in the center of the floor, was a dark stain, fresh and wet, as if something had been dragged across the carpet. The bathroom door was wide open this time, and inside, the mirror was shattered. My reflection was fractured, distorted, but as I stared into the shards, I realized that the face staring back at me wasn't mine. It was the same pale, distorted face I had seen the night before. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The door slammed shut behind me, and I was plunged into darkness. The flashlight died, and I was left alone with the cold, the smell, and the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then, I heard it. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, approaching me. The air grew colder, and I felt a hand on my shoulder, icy and bone-thin. I turned, but there was no one there. The next thing I knew, I was back at the front desk, the phone still in my hand, the line dead. My heart was racing, my body drenched in sweat. I checked the time, 2:05 a.m. I quit the next day. I don't know what I experienced in room 213, and I don't want to know. But every time I close my eyes, I see that face. And every night, at 2 a.m., I wake up to the sound of the phone ringing, the voice whispering from the darkness. Room 213. I thought quitting would free me from the nightmare, but it followed me. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. The phone calls came every night, always at 2 a.m., no matter where I was. The voice was more desperate, more insistent. Room 213. Help me, please. I tried to ignore it, but the calls never stopped. I changed my number, but the calls kept coming. I stopped answering, but the voice seeped into my dreams, echoing through my mind until I couldn't tell what was real anymore. One night, after a particularly vivid nightmare where I was back in room 213, I woke up to find myself standing outside the Evergreen Hotel. I had no memory of getting there, no idea how I'd driven through the city in my sleep. The lobby was dark, deserted. I didn't want to go inside, but some force, compelled me. The doors swung open as I approached, and I stepped into the lobby, my heart pounding in my chest. The front desk was just as I remembered it, but the air was thick with tension, as if the very walls were holding their breath. I approached the desk, and before I could stop myself, I picked up the phone. It rang, once, twice, and then that familiar voice, "Room 213. My hands were trembling as I hung up. I turned to leave, but my feet wouldn't move. Something was drawing me toward the stairs, up to the second floor. I fought it, tried to resist, but my body was no longer my own. The hallway was darker than I remembered, the shadows deeper, more oppressive. I could barely see the numbers on the doors as I passed them, but I didn't need to. I knew where I was going. Room 213. The door was wide open, the room beyond it swallowed by darkness. I stood at the threshold, unable to breathe, unable to think. The air was freezing, and the smell of decay was stronger than ever, almost suffocating. I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me, and I was plunged into darkness. My flashlight flickered to life, but the beam was weak, barely piercing the gloom. The dark stain was still there, now larger, spreading across the floor like a blackened wound. And then I saw it. In the corner, where the darkness was thickest, a figure was crouched, huddled over something. Its back was to me, its movements slow and deliberate, as if it were eating. Couldn't move, couldn't speak. The flashlight flickered again, and the figure stopped. Slowly, it turned its head toward me. The face was no longer just pale and distorted. It was rotting, decayed, its eyes sunken into hollow sockets, its mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. Blood dripped from its lips, staining the tattered remnants of its clothes. It stood up, towering over me, its breath rattling in its throat. The stench of death was overwhelming, and I felt my knees buckle as it took a step toward me. "Help me?" It rasped, its voice barely a whisper, but filled with such pain, such agony, that I felt it in my bones. I stumbled backward, tripping over something soft. I looked down and my blood ran cold. It was a body. The remains were barely recognizable, but the face was intact enough to see the twisted expression of terror frozen in death. It was me. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. The figure loomed over me, its rotten hand reaching out, cold fingers closing around my throat. And then, everything went black. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. My throat was raw, and my body ached all over. The doctor said I was found unconscious in the middle of the street, not far from the hotel. I tried to tell them about room 213, about what I saw, but they didn't believe me. They said I was delirious, that I had a breakdown from the stress of the job. But I know the truth. The hotel burned down a week later. They said it was an accident, that the wiring was faulty, but I know better. Room 213 wanted to be free, and it took the whole building with it. But it's not over. The phone calls have started again, and this time they're different. The voice is angry now, no longer pleading. "Room 213, you can't escape. I know what I have to do. I have to go back to that room, back to where it all started. I don't know what will happen, but I can't live like this anymore. I'm writing this down so that someone will know what happened to me. If you're reading this, stay away from the Evergreen Hotel. And if you ever get a call at 2 a.m., don't answer it, because some doors, once opened, can never be closed."